Good evening, guys. It's Morgan Straughan Comnick here. Today is December 10th, so I definitely want to say Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate this glorious occasion. It is the first day of Hanukkah of 2020, so cheers to you guys and lots of blessings and love during your festivities. The reason I'm bringing up Hanukkah is because I'm going to be reading the first couple of pages of one of the short stories in my new collection that's coming out extremely soon. The collection is called Endless Silver Ocean, and it has poems and short stories and such about my starting teaching era. So it's not about education, but I have more mature stories because I'm kind of evolving as an author. I was getting into new adult as well as young adult, but I also have stuff at young at heart because you want to have those warm and wonderful times you can remember to just kind of keep you going for the hard ones. So yeah. So this story that I'm going to be reading to you is a holiday story. It is a Hanukkah story primarily, a little bit of Christmas and other things sprinkled in as well. And I've been working on this story for about 4 years off and on, and I finally, a few months ago, decided to buckle down and write it. And these characters have really, they've latched onto me and I've latched onto them. They warm my heart, and I hope you guys get that sense as well. The writing style I use is inspired by my favorite author, Lorraine McDaniel, because she writes really inspirational stories about primarily children, but people who go through tragedy or are diagnosed with chronic or fatal illnesses, and she still brings some hope and just a lot of love into her work. So that was kind of my goal. Plus, I love Christmas stories and holiday stories, and I've always been interested in Hanukkah, so I thought, why not? Okay, so the title of this story is Song in the Stars, and I will be reading the first couple of pages to you right now. I got it printed out here. Okay, and I hope you guys enjoy. As I look up at the sky, the luminosity of the celestial beings glistened, radiant jewels crafted by the heavens. And that is where fate has decided my next path should be. I gaze at them, trying to make them my own, to control their movement, a chaotic dance. Depending on the angle, I will greet this destiny with a frown or with a smile. The great clouds somersaulted in the sky, making the city swirl in dull hues that matched the magnificent skyscrapers that grew from the ground. Stillness sang in the air as the beginning snow flurries floated down, breezes becoming icy. Winter was upon the city, people hustling and bustling, bundled up in massive coats that shielded them from the cold and socialization. That is exactly what Alina Sylvia wanted. As the snowflakes began to fall in lovely patterns, Alina's vision became hazy, spots blinking in front of her. But she didn't like when the image became clear, her own reflection staring at her. A deadness was set in her irises, eyes that used to be so beautiful and bright. It was nothing new. They'd been like that for almost a year now. Her face was ashen, pale like the fresh snow. Everything had been sucked out of her, her heart frozen forever. The disoriented ways of the department store's bay window showed muddled images of the day her life changed, flashbacks rippling in the glass. Her love, the other half of her, was taken from her in a stupid crash, an accident because of a reckless driver on the ice. Watching her darling of 15 years, one heartbeat since they were teens, suffering, failing to survive, had taken everything out of her. An overconfident man stole everything from her. She had to watch her anchor bleed out as they rushed him to an operating room, his lungs collapsing, unable to function. He couldn't hear her cries, her encouragement to hang on, her final words to him of the purest declaration of love. The last squeeze she gave his hand burned into her flesh, forever a treasure and an agony. Red and blue lights haunted her. Sirens screeched her awake like invisible banshees. Bright white lights made her breath short, for it reminded her of the hospital. The rows of black lining the funeral made her dizzy. She buried her heart and passions with her one and only as they lowered the casket into the stiff earth, chills going through her, seeping into her bones, and they never truly left. Moisture was trapped behind her eyes, but they never released. She could never shed tears, not that she hadn't tried. But once the final goodbye was called, it was as if her body refused to let her feel anymore, or to at least unlock these emotions. Alina was a shell, going through the motions only because she didn't know how not to. Her family and friends were only a reason for really pretending to try. She wished she could just give them more. A tingle ran down her spine, slightly zapping her from her listlessness. She got this way often, and she loathed it. Still, she had a task to do. From under her arm, she grabbed one of the rolled-up posters. The brilliant red of her gloves contrasting against her dove-gray peacoat, snow sprinkling on them both like a dusting of sugar. Gingerly, she peeled off her right glove so she could pull the tape from her pocket. Slowly, the images of the poster revealed itself, the sight making her groan and nibble her lip in irritation. Why did I agree to do this? She mumbled heatedly to herself. After a heavy sigh that crafted a puff of air, she hung it on the side of the window display like she was instructed by the fancy store. Their winter line opposite in bold designs compared to the bland world inside and outside of her soul. To have this event in front of a high-end place like this, among others she would hang soon, should be an honor. But she only felt nerves and unworthiness. Please, sir, if you would only reconsider. A chipper but desperate plea entered her ears, causing Alina to pause, her hands holding the half-taped poster in place. She stared to her left in the direction of the voice. Not sure why, she was intrigued. The snow started to pick up, descending in a cascade of wonder. Through their waltz, she saw from a distance what appeared to be a young man, a bundle of energy about to burst from the seams, radiating warmth like a supernova. There was a small woman behind him, wringing her petite hands. Alina wasn't sure if it was from nerves or in prayer. They were facing an older gentleman in black pants and a shirt, a high collar gracing his neck, but he was partly obscured from Alina's view with the large and detailed wooden door. The man leaned down, sympathy humming in his eyes, but his words, although heartbroken to some point, were clear. I apologize, son, but what you ask cannot be done. We have our own traditions to follow, but we wish you luck in your journey and pray for your well-being. He somberly bowed his head and gradually shut the door. The boy tried to call out and halt the closing with his foot, but he was too late. Although the older gent barely made a sound with his departure, the locking of the door was booming to Alina, like a gavel banged in a silent courtroom, and his decision seemed final. For some reason, Alina couldn't look away, watching the snow rain down, brushing the young man's leather jacket. They looked like comforting companions as an expression of utter defeat skidded across his face. Yet it was only there for a second. He took a deep breath and stretched, shrugging towards the woman with an easy grin, so laid back and full of vigor that Alina wished she could bottle it. There was something about him. As if he sensed her gaze, he halted his conversation and turned his head quickly, stopping when his eyes met Alina's. She stood there frozen mentally and in body. Alina could feel her mouth opening in a stupid gasp, but she couldn't shake it off or make herself move, although she wanted to bolt. Yet the young man had the reverse reaction. A light of recognition glowed in his eyes, and his smile was bombastic, showing deep happiness and excitement. It was like the universe was tugging his lips forward. Before Alina could comprehend what he was doing, he hopped off the stairs and barreled down the street in her direction. Panic rose into Alina's throat, her hands quaking a little. But again, she was stuck to her spot. In a flash, he was right beside Alina, bouncing on his heels. The whiteness of his grin was blinding, dazzling, putting her in a trance despite her fear. On closer inspection, he had a black shirt with maps of constellations dotting it, and bright red pants that stuck out. He jammed his hands in his pockets, giving another leap or two in place. Excuse me, miss? I'm so sorry for sprinting over to you like that. You must think I'm a lunatic. But when I saw you across the street, I'm totally in awe right now. He chuckled, his black curly locks bobbing wildly with all his random movements. Tenderly, he tried to control his hair, but it was a failed attempt. Alina kept on gawking like a moron, hoping her breath would become a little more steady. Overthinking was Alina's specialty. From this, she guessed she loosened her grip, and her hand slid down the poster an inch, startling her. They both jumped at the noise, the poster their shared target. Another beam spread across his youthful face, his pupils shining in stunning clear-water light. It is you! You're Alina Sylvia, the supernatural author sensation! He clapped with joy. Alina nodded, her hinges finally working again. She never knew how to react with extreme fanning. Yes, she was somehow able to choke out, her motions rusty. I knew it! I knew! Even all the way from the church. Man, I just knew it. This is so fantastic. I never thought I'd see the day. Get to meet you in real life. Especially after you took a hiatus for a year. But I'm sure it was for a really important reason. The young man tittered a bit, covering his mouth. A gentle flush kissing his cheeks, but there was no shame in it. Alina thought he was just getting worked up. He moved his hands in big robotic motions with his overstressed words to make his point come across. Your books are my favorite of all time. They are absolutely incredible. You write with such heart, fine detail, engagement. Really, they were my salvation when I was in the hospital. I owe you such a huge thank you. His words pierced through her heart, allowing a sliver of emotion to race into it, pumping into her blood until Alina heard it pounding in her ears. She usually would give a simple but heartfelt thank you. But his honesty and endearment toward her work spoke to a part she thought she had lost. Timidly, she acknowledged his compliments, feeling her cheeks redden, but she hoped she could blame it on the cold. Thank you for your praises. It means a lot to me and my characters, and I'm sorry that you were in the hospital and for whatever was happening over there. Elena inclined her head towards where he was earlier. The woman standing on the bottom step of what now Elena observed was a church. Speckles of rainbow skating on the pavement from a stained glass window on the second floor. A flicker of sorrow showed in his eyes, but he blinked it away before looking at Elena once more. Yeah, I'm on a mission, and I'm not giving up until it happens. His grin was so innocent and confident that it made one believe unicorns and fairies were real. She was fascinated by his actions, not sure what to say, but he broke the brief silence after scanning her poster. You're doing a book signing next week? That's amazing! I know the world has missed you, and you'll make so many people happy and excited. Again, Alina nodded, the movement harder than it should have been. She locked onto the poster, glaring internally and wondering how her agent talked her into it. I know it's been a year and I promised I would try, but my passion for writing died with my dearest. I wanted to support my stories and my characters, my fans, but I wasn't sure I had the strength to. Elena thought. Still, at least she lived in the present and finished taping the poster, her ungloved hand numb, stinging from the bitter cold. Yeah, I haven't written anything new in a while, but my agent thought this would be a good start. I'm not sure about the turnout, but right now I have to hang all these posters at the approved stores in Nolita, and it seems that I'm sucking miserably. Alina tried to give him a little smile, but it felt bitter, a stranger. I would be honored to help if I wouldn't get in your way. His offer threw her, but his look was eager. Oh, well, I appreciate it, but I don't want to impose on you. Plus, you have a friend with you. Alina pointed in the direction of the small framed woman shyly making her way towards him. That's my mother. She won't mind. She knows how much I love your books. Her head was reeling. I mean, he knows me, but I don't know him, Elena fretted. Yep, she felt like a villain, the threat of his purity, like her shell of an essence she was stuck... Like her shell of an innocent she was stuck in would taint him if he got any closer. I'm grateful, especially of you being a reader of my works, but well, we're strangers. His grin was sharp, cutting through her doubt in one swish. All people start out as strangers, if you think about it. If we let that stop us, then no one would become friends. The truth of his philosophy allowed a fraction more emotion to seep into Elena's heart. The heart she thought that was frozen forever as the wintry world encased them in soft majesty. Plus, he dragged out, an oddly mischievous wink entering his eyes, a playful smile to match, soon falling as he walked in front of her, pacing like a lecturing professor. You want to know why I was in the hospital? He bent down close to Elena's face, making her flinch and clutch her remaining posters in a death grip. I can see it in your eyes. He stared closely into them, studying her, noticing her, truly seeing her as a woman, not just a celebrity he admired. And he liked her even more, knowing the side of her. In addition, it seemed fun to poke fun at her. She blushed, started staring at the ground for a moment to collect her thoughts. She felt busted, guilty, but she didn't want to discuss the topic, going for a more polite routine. Well, thank you, I suppose. Well, I'll let you make the decision if you want to help. Awesome! Let me tell my mom real fast. Don't worry, Miss Sylvia. We'll get these posters up to make up for lost time lickety-split. And he dashed over to the small woman. She still clutched her tiny hands together. With animated expressions, he explained what was happening. His mother stared bug-eyed at Alina, of course knowing who she was, but not feeling safe that her son was going with her. The young man wrapped his arm around her, looking like a pillar next to her, promising his mother he would be safe and meet her back on the church steps in an hour. If not, she had permission to call him and chew him out. Her muddled eyes bored into Alina's soul, making the author hug her posters until she feared she would wrinkle them. After an intense stare down, the boy's mother nodded and gave him an affectionate pat on the arm, turning to walk away at a snail's pace. The boy was excited, sliding all over the sidewalk to get back to Alina. She says it's fine. I just have to be back in front of the church in an hour, and I have my phone ready to go. I know, it's weird. 28-year-old man taking orders from his mommy. But she is very protective, and I owe her more than I could ever repay. But I'm so pumped to be helping you, Miss Sylvia. I'll try not to talk your ear off, but I have a lot of questions I've always wanted to ask you. He did a fist bump in the air and then realized he was too jazzed, stuffing his hands in his pockets, kicking the dusting of snow on the ground to cool off. Alina, please. Miss Sylvia is way too formal. She waved her hand ladylike in front of him, humbling, then pointing towards down the street. My next hanging spot is 3 stores down. I wasn't expecting an adventure today, and I'm usually a quiet person in real life anyway, so I just hope I don't bore you. Once more, she tried to smile, this time a little warmth entering it. He noticed. It made him catch his breath and fill his heart with glee. He flung his arms outward to show his wingspan, a fan for dramatics. Not at all, Alina. Let's get this party started. Slowly, he ventured forward, blending into the city residents, zooming through their lives, blurs they would never know. Strangers that stayed strangers. They crossed the sidewalk, Alina giving him a thoughtful sideways glance. So, before I answer all your pressing questions, I think you owe me an answer to my unspoken one. I'm not used to people reading me that well. It surprised me. I mean, if you don't mind answering. Oh, sorry. Oh, that was rude. Her feet became her focus, wishing she could cram them in her mouth. Alina could feel his smile without looking at him. His charming voice melted her out of her scared state. I'm just good at reading people. Lots of practice. And I've seen that look a million times, even from the most neutral people. That burning curiosity and sadness. It's to be expected. He shrugged, blowing out air in the darkening skies to make his own clouds. Once they arrived at their first stop, she got directions to where the place was. To her chagrin, the store was eager to promote her. The boy stuck out his hand once the poster was in its new home, a tender and deep expression on his face that caught Elena's full attention. But I do owe you an answer. I've been in the hospital off and on for half of my life. And before I tell you my story, I guess I should formally introduce myself. My name is Ezra Brookman Shea. All right, so that's the first few pages of my holiday Hanukkah short story called Song in the Stars. It will be a part of my short story collection entitled In the Silver Ocean. It'll be on ebook really, really soon, and then we're hoping that with a novella I'm working on will be combined into the paperback sometime in January. Something else I wanted to mention about my short story collection, I do have a special writing piece, I suppose would be the best wording for it. So this writing piece is something that I have emotionally been working on probably since I was 10. I just never had the courage until maybe 5 years ago to write it, and even I needed more courage to bring it out. So it's something that I hope when people read it kind of explains a little more about me and why I maybe am kind of fearful of conflict, or why I just want to be nice to everybody. Because at a young age, I had something that made me see the effect of not showing kindness to others. So that writing project is in there. Is probably the hardest thing I had to write, but it's something I think just for myself, not as an author, but as a person, I needed to write. So it's in there, and I'm sharing it with you guys finally, because the story, the involvement of the story needs to be shared, for one, with the world. And just, I want you guys to kind of, if you have something similar happen, I want you to know you're not alone, or things like that. So the only two people that kind of really know even a little bit about the situation is my beta reader, Rachel. My father knows a little bit, and then Derek knows a little bit as well. If I haven't told you, it's nothing personal. It's not something I deal with every day, but it's something that I do deal with. And I do hope the special will resound in you or give you some kind of emotion. So that's in there as well. That will be in the ebook and in the paperback. So I don't know how to, I wouldn't describe it really as a poem, but it's also not a short story. It's more maybe like a lyrical short story, I guess. That might be the best way the pacing and the writing is. So yeah, just want to let you guys know that as well. But like I said, there's a little combination of lots of things. There's cute little fun stories like about my cat Socks, or fun times with my grandma. And then there's more serious stuff that are definitely 16 plus, 17 plus, which is why this is under my What's If Publishing, which is my new adult content, with it 17 plus. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. And I hope you guys are as excited as I am for it to come out. Well, you're probably not as excited as I am, but I do hope you will enjoy it. And please feel free to say on my Facebook, on my website, Geeky Cool. I'll also be promoting and giving you new information on there when it comes out, because they're really awesome and they want me to promote myself and my work. So yay, nerd love. Okay guys, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Feel free to contact me anytime. I would love your thoughts on my reading. I did blow up a little bit. I'm sorry. But hey, Winnie the Pooh is here with us, you know, woo, looking chic and fabulous. So at least we have a little something this year at the end of this really weird year, as sweet as honey. All right, stay unique, stay awesome, stay nerdy. You guys are beautiful, shining stars. All right, love you all. Bye.